That's right, 90s style X-Men is coming back to the small screen, as well as the toy aisle. So how do these X-Men 97 toys from Hasbro stack up to the classics we got from Toy Biz in the 90s? Keep watching to find out on this episode of Geek Dad Life. Premiering on October 31st, 1992 on Fox Kids, X-Men the Animated Series, along with Batman the Animated Series, elevated children's programming to a level we could only dream of in the 80s. The show took all of the great themes and storylines from the comics seriously, and each episode felt like must-see TV as a kid. By the time the show arrived, I had already fallen in love with X-Men through Toy Biz's 1991 X-Men line. My first ever X-Men figure was the brown suit Wolverine, which I still own. I eventually got all of the figures of that first wave, but one of my first white whale figures was the Nightcrawler. I was obsessed with Nightcrawler because of his appearance in the classic arcade game. He was my go-to guy. My whole family was on the lookout for him, until a family member finally found him one day after work. I thankfully still own that very Nightcrawler as well. That toy line was the beginning of me becoming a toy collector, a term I didn't really refer to myself as until Power of the Force 2 in 1995. But everything I am now as a toy collector, I was for the Toy Biz X-Men figures. Taking my allowance to KB, Playco, Toys R Us, Target, Swap Meets, and even Price Club, which later became Costco, had X-Men sets that I would pick up. Toy Biz gave us every possible figure under the sun. And due to the mass quantities that they produce, they were readily available, especially at those legendary KB discount tag prices. My passion shifted from X-Men, Batman to Star Wars with the advent of Kenner's Power of the Force 2 line. But even now, Marvel Legends that I pick up are usually modern versions of those Toy Biz figures that I bought. Or I'll pick up carded versions of those vintage figs since they're still pretty affordable. So when I first heard that they were going to continue the original X-Men TAS storyline on Disney Plus under the new title X-Men 97, I was super excited. At this year's Comic-Con, Hasbro showed off their main retail line supporting the show, and it had me feeling all of those old school waves of nostalgia for those simple yet effective Toy Biz figures. So it was no shocker that when I found all of these at a local Target, I bought them all up. And now that I have them in hand, was I under the influence of nostalgia? Or are they actually good toys for X-Men fans, young and old? The packaging has vibrant colors and graphics befitting its retro 90s lineage. The figure boxes for the Sentinel as well as our heroes are fairly plain. They have a simple rectangular shape with an open cutout to see the figure in place of a bubble. Hasbro has already announced that they are shifting away from plastic-free packaging, but the ability to see these figures easily should assuage any concerns that people have for plastic-free packaging. I will note that aside from the Blackbird, the rest do feature plastic bands to hold the figure in place. The Blackbird packaging, or as they're calling it here, the X-Jet, is a ton of fun, featuring a subtle X shape while showing off pictures of the vehicle and figure that you receive when buying the set. Once you get them all out of the packaging, you're left with pretty solid toys. Starting with the Sentinel, he is a big figure coming in at 14 inches. I haven't been able to find him at retail, so this is the only one I picked up on Amazon. He kind of has the feel of those 12-inch superhero figures that Hasbro and Spin Masters make for their Marvel and DC lines. He's light on paint application, but the paint that's there works well. Sculpting seems great. He really does look good with the rest of the regular size figures trying to take him down. His articulation is fairly simple, essentially coming in around 5 POA with articulation at his hips, shoulders, and head. I wish he had extra hands and maybe a tentacle or two, but for 23 bucks, I'm not upset about it. The 3 mainline figure releases are Wolverine, Rogue, and Cyclops. I'm disappointed we didn't get more for this first wave. If there's a major critique that I have with the line, is that it feels like they didn't go all out to support it. 1 vehicle, 4 figures if you include the Storm Pack-In, and heck, 5 if you include the Sentinel, and that's it. Maybe I'm feeling spoiled after the all-out blitz Playmates did for TMNT Mutant Mayhem, but the limited scope of the first wave of X-Men 97 toys feels lacking. But for these figures, I would compare them to the offerings that Spin Masters has done with their DC properties. They scale similarly and have similar articulation. But the paint apps and sculpts on these X-Men figures are way better. That does come at an extra cost though, with these figures retailing just over $10, while Spin Master comes in just under $8. But from my perspective, I think the extra $2 is felt here, even though 10 bucks on a standard turtle figure gives you larger scale and way more accessories. Still, I really like the look and feel of these figures. The accessories are fun, but not needed, maybe only for Cyclops, and honestly his is a little clunky. I'm curious how other kids enjoy the 3 3/4 inch scale figures. I know mine have gravitated more towards the larger 4.5 or 5.5 inch scale that has been seen on recent TMNT, Motu, and Ghostbuster releases. Now let's move on to the only disappointment I have with these toys, and that's the X-Jet set. It's one of the most iconic Marvel vehicles, and it makes sense that one is included here, but it's way too small. With Hasbro's 3 3/4 inch epic scale, they could have made a larger and more truly epic Blackbird. Even the Toy Biz one was woefully undersized, but an undersized 3 3/4 inch vehicle looks even more silly. It feels like they cut corners with the size, but also other features. It only features one rocket launcher, with the other being a dummy. For $35, I expect more. When comparing it to the similar Batwing release from Spin Master's Flash line, you can see that while it doesn't feature as much color variation, nor the same amount of play features as the X-Jet, it still looks like a decent version of the Batwing that we saw on screen. Now, maybe the X-Jet is a smaller short-range vehicle, and they'll still go for a proper Blackbird at some point. But that Batwing set came with 2 figures and a nice-looking Batwing for $25. This is $10 more, and I don't feel like I got $10 extra of value. The single shooter, while promoting twice the missile action, seems misleading. The hero swing is too long and makes it hard to play with, and the hero carrier on the back really only works well with Storm so far, which, as we all know, she can fly on her own. So out of all of these, don't pay full price for the X-Jet. Wait till it hits clearance so you can get a really nice Storm figure. My only gripe with her is that her cape doesn't move once you clip her arms in. Comparing this first wave of releases to the Toy Biz first wave is a bit unfair. Early Toy Biz was definitely hit or miss in sculpting, paint, and the silly vehicle department. But where it's far better than this first wave of X-Men 97 toys is in its scope. Toy Biz swung for the fences, like their company's existence depended on it, and it often was. This assortment feels like a company slightly dipping their toes into a property, which doesn't give the same opportunity to fall head over heels like Toy Biz's X-Men line gave us. So this X-Men 97 line is a bit of a mixed bag. The Sentinel is great, as well as the regular scale figures, but the lack of character selection and a lackluster vehicle put this toy line behind some of the other retail toy lines supporting TV and film properties right now. Definitely get the Sentinel and figures if you're an X-Men fan or if your kids have gotten into the new show. But for collectors, I think the new X-Men 97 Marvel Legends will be more what you're looking for. They looked fantastic at Comic-Con. But for me personally, I like the main retail releases for toys because they usually give you more vehicles and playsets than collector lines, and I really love all of the world building that provides. Unfortunately, this line falls just shy of that for me, currently. I will say, if you really want to get into a toy line featuring tons of character selection, vehicles, and playsets for these X-Men characters, maybe try the old Toy Biz line. It's still fairly affordable as a vintage line, and still has lots to offer. If you want to keep watching, check out this video, and until next time, hasta luego, and goodbye.